family, that was me, and we'd gone like this.
Yeah.
And it was okay. It was absolutely okay. Because according to them, I was this posh, weird creation now. But for me, my day-to-day life, that attitude and that kind of mindset helped me meet incredible people, influential people, and people that wouldn't say to me, oh, it's kind of like, oh, you've come from the Australian version of the Bronx. Acting in Australia, Acropolis Now was one of those multicultural ethnic shows that celebrated ethnic people, but it was the only one. Then you had, was that Con the Fruiterer? That was a stereotypical Greek guy that ran a fruit shop, and there wasn't much at all. Hearing myself speak, oh my God, like this, I remember going, wait, I've never heard not one feature film have a character that spoke like that. So how on earth was I going to go and become an actor when I sounded like that? I wanted to undo everything. My biggest goal was I didn't want to be a product of my environment. And I didn't want my environment growing up to limit me with the opportunities that it was going to give me later. I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm not ashamed of who I've come from. I'm a very proud Australian-born Syrian parents kind of guy. My dad came from a village in Syria, and so did my mum. So I understand, with all respect, them being parents and them being my creator, they could only realistically tell me so much about the world. It had to come from a slanted perception that was theirs. And I think also the fact that when I got to a point, I think I was 18 or 19, and I realized my parents were just humans still trying to work it out. I don't know at what point I got sold the idea that once our parents have us, they must have worked everything out. Do you know?
Yeah,
I don't know where I got that information from, but I feel like I've held them responsible for that. And then there was this one day where I realized mum and dad were having a fight. They were in the process of getting a divorce. And I remember sitting there and giving my mum some advice. And my mum just turned around, and I was 14 or 15 at the time. And I turned around and I told her something. And she just stopped and she looked at me and she goes to me, can you just be a 14-year-old? Because this is not making me feel good that you have to sit here and talk to me like an adult. And I don't know what it was, but I felt like I knew what to say. I could communicate to their level. But I also had the awareness of what was right and what was wrong. And I just wanted to handpick, especially also when religion, social stigmas, social stereotypes. Like my dad was pretty racist, my dad was pretty sexist, and all that information and all the jokes, the daily jokes, us kids used to always look at each other and go, huh, yeah, that doesn't sound right. And just kind of look back at that and just kind of go, oh, okay, cool, great. Wow.
Okay.
Just wow. Maybe it was the fact that we technically were born and grew up in Australia, even though our environments were limited, there was still that insight. My dad left our family on very bad terms towards the end of it all.
Right.
But I remember giving my dad my first modeling card.
Okay.
And I remember just writing, to Dad, I love you, from Hareth. And I remember sending this back to him in Australia. And that was the only way of me telling him that this is what I'm doing. If you can feel proud, great. If you don't, I'm not forcing it, pretty much. He then moved back to Syria after a while. He passed away. And then the one thing I was told was that when my dad passed away, in his top pocket was my modeling card.
Oh, that's nice.
It was folded, and this is after like 15, 20 years later.
Yeah.
It was folded in his pocket, so he kept it with him the whole time. So in his way, he came, I guess, to acceptance of what I was doing. Mum was incredible. After Dad left the picture, Mum was super silent the whole time Dad was around. She was the passive, submissive kind of character. And then when Dad left, Mum took it upon herself that she had to spend one-on-one time with all of us at some point and have a one-on-one conversation, because we'd never connected with our mother individually. I remember her coming into my room, and it was my turn. I didn't know this was happening. And she sat me down and she said, so I want to ask you a question. She goes, this whole acting and modeling stuff, is this something you really want to do? I said, Mum, acting for sure. I said, modeling has just popped up. I'm using it for my own gain. I said, and I'm traveling the world with it. I said, but acting is really what I really want to do. She goes, is it something you feel in here? I said, what? And I couldn't believe, I knew what she was talking about, but I couldn't believe she was actually asking me this question because it was never a kind of conversation we would have at home. And she goes, inside here, does it feel like it's what you need to be doing? And I just looked at her and I was just like, in that moment, I fell in love with my mum all over again. And I was like, yes, that's it. She goes, okay, well, just let me know when the day comes and the limousine's going to come and pick me up to come to your awards.
Okay. Oh, she's like, so cute.
I was just like, you've been silent for the last 20 years of my life. And that 1, 2, 3 minute conversation has now made up for all those years of not saying a single word and if I look back, at no point did she ever say I couldn't do it. Mum got married when she was 14.
Right.
So, and sorry, there isn't a 30-year difference. I think that makes it weird. My mum was 15 and my dad was 30.
Okay.
It's still weird.
Okay.
But it wasn't as dramatic. My dad was 30, mum was 50. So there's a 15-year difference between mum and dad.
Okay.
And that also explains a bit of the dynamics inside the house.
Yeah, it does.
And how mum was more of like us.
Yeah.
Because she stopped growing. You could imagine at 14 when you're just like married. I call it like you're pickled.
Pickled?
You pickled. You know, you just stopped growing.
Yeah.
And then when dad left, all of a sudden like we could see her come to life.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like that 15, 16-year-old that she never got to be.
Okay.
Yeah, and she bought herself a 4-wheel drive and she did the whole kind of, I want to go to my friends traveling and...
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like she's starting to live her own life. And...
Completely.
Okay.
She called me after her first trip away and she goes, do you know what? I get it. I get exactly what you do. You will never ever hear me asking you why you're traveling so much. She goes, I get it. She goes, you can be whoever you want.
Yeah.
And I said, that's it, Mum. She goes, yes. And she goes, and people are so nice. And I said, that's the other thing, Mum. There are people outside our neighborhood. There are people outside our suburb.
Yeah.
She's got a shrine of me at home. It's awkward. It's like I'm dead. It's so weird.
It's so cute.
It's cute, but it's also weird at the same time.
I can just imagine her like just pottering at home and then she's got this big picture of you.
Yeah. It's a massive, there's this huge thing. I won an Oyster magazine had a competition for some hair thing and they had this huge exhibition to announce the winner. And I asked me if I wanted to take that picture home and I was like, yeah, my mum would love that. So at the bottom it says, to Mum, love you, Hareth.
Yeah.
And her friends didn't meet me for many years because I was traveling so much.
Yeah.
And at some point they even accused her. They were like, when I showed up, they were like, yeah, we're glad you're here because we were a little bit kind of doubting the fact that was her son. There was this guy hanging up on the wall.
And they're just wondering what's happened.
Who never showed up ever, like doesn't exist.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, but she's my #1 fan and I love her. I love her so much for that. Casual racism exists in Australia. We all know this. Mum definitely copped some abuse and some just racist remarks. I guess it just came from a place of not knowing. I like to believe that people are good and I like to believe that people also get scared quite easily and the fear of the unknown is a thing. And so I believe with that culture, with that coming with a particular dress attire, we also had multicultural day at school and I think they tried so hard to introduce the token Asian, the token Arab, the token whatever to the rest of our school. So they held this multicultural day where one of our parents was actually, because that's probably the only multicultural person that they knew, would come and hold a room and explain what the culture was about. And so you then would walk around the school going from one room to another, which I thought was
yeah, that was pretty fun.
Pretty intelligent.
To learn about these cultures and
100%.
Interact and yeah.
But my dad took it to the next level. So he made us all wear the white garbs that we normally wear to mosques.
Yeah.
He also made us wear that little white knitted crocheted hat that you would wear to a mosque. But to add to all that, there's this thing in Arabic called kahl. And kahl is, you use the tusk. Oh my God, I actually just realized how politically incorrect that is. A bone of an animal, which is used to put eyeliner.
Right.
So it's a little inkwell, and you put it in there, and you're meant to do it like that, and you put a line, and it creates this black eyeliner that goes from underneath and above, and it creates this little line. If you watch Egyptian documentaries, you see a lot of the Egyptians back in the day, the guys, wore a lot of black eyeliner.
Right.
So that's an actual Middle Eastern thing.
Okay.
But put black eyeliner on a child, on a male child, in one of these schools, put him in a long white dress, you're pretty much making the boy look like he's cross-dressing. And that in itself also then activated another bunch of taunts and another bunch of name-calling and all that.
Okay.
So my takeaway, I think, from all that was learning the thick skin concept, which plays a great role in auditions. People are actually celebrating people's identities these days. And if you come from a bit of a twist or a bit of a broken home, you become a lot more relatable. Being an actual role model or being inspiring actually becomes a thing, a legit thing. Like I can sit there, and I could have easily bought into the whole influencer thing with Instagram. I'm glad that I'm part of the generation that posted purely for our own sake. We didn't post because we didn't think it was going to be a big deal. It was pretty much our personal photo album that we could look back and just trigger memories. But now I like the idea that I co-present on a TV show in Syria, that I do live transmits across, and the message that I get from a random Syrian kid saying, I can't believe there's another Syrian guy out there running around the world. You give me 10 minutes to take my mind off what's going on here, and you tell me about all the cool, fun, light-hearted things that are happening everywhere else. Look, we're not saving anyone's life with what we do, but in this day and age when it's so much darkness, I'm super happy to be part of a community that just kind of brings a bit of light. I went to Dubai to actually see how I could make sense of my Arabic and my English. So I went there and became a TV presenter, and they loved me. I was an Arabic Muslim guy that was tattooed. And that to them was kind of like the modern version of what was going on outside of the country. And Dubai, being a Middle Eastern country, but still open and actually seeking Western influence, embraced someone like me when I got there. So with that, and while I was there, I felt like I was in my motherland. Okay. Something inside me felt at peace. Something inside me felt connected to the sand, to the desert, to the sun, to all that environment, to the language. I felt that. To the food. I still identify as a Middle Eastern guy. I identify that proudly now. In the past, acting has actually made me shut that idea down, because they weren't roles for Middle Eastern guys. They weren't. The only time I think I got an interest to go to a soapy and audition for a 3-year character was a questionable family was moving into this street.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that role in those family never happened, because they obviously squashed that idea. I don't identify as a Muslim. I have taken what I like out of the religion. I think it's a very beautiful religion. I think it's super peaceful. Ironically, the news and the media and what's happening right now doesn't communicate it, but I don't believe those people are actually practicing the religion in its original format. I cringe at every concept of religion. It's not just Islam. It's not anything in particular. It's all of it. It's the fact that I'm a big believer that we are all gods, and that self-belief, self-love, self-worship, without it being a negative form. It's like when someone's saying being selfish is negative. I think it's a positive attribute. Yeah, I see that woman that sits at that church and prays and prays and prays, and then things come true, and that makes me question. It's like, did you just manifest all that? Do you realize that you could actually be your God, and that you've actually created what you're crediting to someone in the clouds as a blessing or an opportunity, but this is something maybe that you've actually called upon yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like visual manifestation is a thing.
Read a book before. I don't know if you've seen that book before. It's called The Alchemist.
Of course.
It's got a very I think you allude to that a little bit, and it sort of like it refers to what you're talking about in terms of the philosophy of living life and things like that. So
that's actually the first book I ever read in its full entirety, and I end up falling in love with Paulo Coelho through that. And the book that I read after that was The Witch of Portobello.
Okay.
Which is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book.
Yeah, by him as well? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, I should look that one up.
Yeah.
Okay.
The definition of beauty has changed for the good. Back then, you had to try and find your place. Whereas now, if you've got a skin disease and it just so happens to be symmetrical, you're a supermodel. It's funny because there's one guy in the last year or so that I've kind of seen blow up. And this guy in my head would have spent his whole life being picked on, being stared at, being ridiculed. He's an albino African-American guy, freckled, with white eyelashes and white hair and just the opposite to his natural skin complexion. Tyra Banks finds a picture of him, not a modeling picture, just a normal picture of him, because he hadn't even modeled then. And she posted on her Instagram saying, there are times when you wish you have discovered a particular face. And this is one of those times, something along those lines. And she posts this guy. This guy goes viral, and every agency around the world wants to sign him up. But on camera, they are loving it. They are comfortable. They're not sitting there covering their body, being all squirmy and shy or going bright red or whatever. They all come with a healthier message. They all come with, don't buy, hire.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode in a series where we interview business leaders, tech innovators, and startup founders about their business journey, insights, and reflections. If you find value in this, please leave us a comment below, and also like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Enjoy!